Good morning, good afternoon, welcome. And we have in the program, we'll have a very brief update on the status of the observatory, available instruments, recent updates, linked to the call for proposal that has been issued just last week. So we are essentially, as Carlos said, the purpose of this workshop is to really give you a quick overview of how to start working on your proposals. So we all know that at the end of March last year, due to the pandemic, the observatories, LPO Paranal Observatory, but also ALMA, went into the safe state. So the science operation ceased, and we have just a very minimum team of people to take care that the buildings and the instrumentation, etc., were safe and that we could restart it later. Since then, we have restarted the observatory. Here we have LPO Paranal Observatory with LPO, Apex, and Paranal. In my presentation, I will be talking mostly about Paranal, but that's simply because this is where most of our observing facilities are, but I will mention the others. So since the drop down of the infections and when we started ramping up the observatory, and we have kept updates on this website. So LPO, LPO Paranal Observatory news page. And from there you can see that LPO has ramped up all the systems in October and November, and is operational fully with NTT, EFOS, and SOFI, and HARPS on 3.6 meter. Since LPO is operated fully in visitor mode, and the international travel is still not possible, we have implemented, as soon as the observatory ramped up, the so-called eavesdropping designated visitor mode using LPO Observatory eavesdropping mode. This is the extension of the tool that has been used for designated visitor mode already on Paranal before that. And of course, we have been using it on Paranal as well. Paranal has started the gradual ramp up in September, and we have reached the restricted operations, fully operational as much as possible in January this year. All the operational instruments, as soon as they were put into operation, have been used in service mode, and we have kept all the visitor mode scheduled from that moment on, of course, executing them in designated visitor mode with POEM Paranal Observatory eavesdropping mode tool. Today, all the systems, all the instruments, science instruments, are operational with the exception of Hawkeye and Vizier. Hawkeye had a couple of attempts to recommission it. Unfortunately, we have discovered that there was some condensation on the entrance window and after the first cool down, and then the instrument had to be warmed up again, and after the second cool down, further problems have been uncovered and will need an intervention that has to be planned. Vizier I'll mention a bit later. Paranal took between September and January to reach these restricted operations, and it is, of course, possible that people question how come it takes so long. Here is a slide that illustrates the path to reach these restricted operations. We have started in the beginning of September, as soon as we could start sending people to the remote sites in the Chilean desert. And here you can see some pictures with charted plane to safely bring people to the north of Chile, starting the first telescope by manually pushing and people in the control room. In the beginning, the first turno, all the turnos are 2 week long, very strict, with very strict safety measures. And in the first turno, we managed to already start the first 2 telescopes and the 2 instruments, US and FORCE 2, with only 30 staff on site. And of these 30 staff, this is all engineers and all the staff that needs to be there, from the cooks to drivers but also, of course, Paranal Science Operation members, telescope operators, and astronomers, 3 of them, for the day and nighttime operations. From then on, further instruments have been added, starting with X-shooter, then adding MUSE in non-AO mode, preparing for addition of the AO mode, sphere, etc. So the instruments have been started in order, typically of how much they're used, and also the complexity of the instrumentation and of the number of systems that needed. Also more people than to start them, more specialists to start and to maintain them. By now we have reached restricted operations with regular presence on site of about 80 staff. And this is what we will keep throughout the coming months. Just for comparison, in a normal operation on Paranal, there is of the order of 150 people any given day. So this is really the bare minimum. And if something fails, that means that there may not be the right person with the right expertise and also the material, if something breaks, to fix. So any failure, any intervention that needs to be done has to be planned well in ahead, because there is simply not enough slack there. Nevertheless, we are really proud and really happy that we are managing very well. There were, so far, apart from Hawkeye that I already mentioned, all the other instruments started fairly smoothly. One, OmegaCam, has one detector that is not functioning, CCD number 77, and Matisse had a failure of the DIL motor, and the L-band is currently fixed in the low resolution mode, low resolution setting. But apart from that, and this will be fixed, there are attempts to recover, but as I said, it requires some planning. In period 108, all the instruments are offered. Here on the right side, you can see essentially the first page of the call for proposal, the most important document that everybody needs to read in order to know what is offered, what can be done, and what are the news and policies. And from there, just by clicking on the instrument name, you will be able to get to the details, technical details, description of the instrument, all the manuals, etc. So in these 10-15 minutes that I have, it's simply impossible to cover all of it. However, the important bits, all the instruments are offered, and large programs are, it is possible to submit large programs in this call for all the instruments with the exception of Cryrus. There are some restrictions that you should be aware of, and please read the call for proposal for further instruments. The SOFI on NTT node will be offered until period 109, FOSC until period 110. This is because of the upcoming commissioning of SOX, and then SOX will be the only instrument on the NTT. Ultracam is a visitor instrument that has been also offered to the community. And on 3.6 in the coming semester, we'll start with commissioning of the NIRPs, which is near infrared HARPs, and it will be offered in the future periods, but not in period 108, of course, it's not yet in Chile. So, as I said, the instrumentation of Paranal, La Silla covers the very broad wavelength range and resolving powers, from the very large range in spatial resolutions, wavelength coverage, spectral resolution, and I do not have the time to go through all of them, but here is a list of imagers that go from optical to near infrared and mid infrared, spectrographs from high resolution from 100,000 to medium resolution X-shooter to low resolution, and also in near infrared, mid infrared, integral field units, multi-object spectrographs, polarimeters, and interferometry. For the details, please visit the web pages of the instruments. In the period, in the last period, so the current period 106, during the last 6 months, we have brought X-shooter to UT3 in order to better balance the pressure among the different telescopes. This year will be mounted on UT2. The delay in bringing it to UT2 was also in part due to restricted operation ramp-up of the operations and the need to install all the cooling plants there. The real most important news for this coming period, for period 108 call for proposal, is the availability of Cryrus. We have successfully commissioned Cryrus in January. This commissioning has followed the first technical commissioning that has been finished actually before the pandemic, before the shutdown of the observatory, and first science of commissioning was successfully done remotely from Garching with help and participation of the colleagues on Paranal. It's for the first time that we are doing really this commissioning in such a way. So it is really nice to see this amazing spectrum of TW Hydra, which is covering 6 orders, so 6 times longer wavelength range in just one shot with respect to the old Cryrus, which is this green spectrum. The Cryrus is offered in the basic spectroscopic mode with on-axis natural guide star and on-axis on slit guiding star. So the target needs to be the guide star as well. In the future, we will also commission additional modes with off-axis, off-axis guiding, spectroastrometry, spectropolarimetry, but this is not yet offered in period 108. Further news and changes very quickly. Muse Galaxy in narrow field mode will get a fainter limiting magnitude pending successful commissioning in April. Espresso is offered in 4x2 slow binning and readout schema in high resolution mode. This is particularly relevant for the faint targets in the 1UT mode. Vizier will be mounted on UT2 by the end of August. Rapid response mode activation will be possible even if focus needs to change. So far, for the rapid response mode, which is, we have been accepting the activation only if the instrument was already observing. So if you're on UT2, you send the rapid RRM activation for US. If US is observing, fine. If we were observing with flames, it would have been rejected. Now this will be possible. First on UT1 and UT2, and then later in the period also UT3 and further telescopes. And this is your last chance to get an observing proposal for Omega Cam at VST and VIRCAM at VISTA. VST contract with ENAV for the operation is coming to its end, and VISTA will get foremost, and we need to dismount VIRCAM in order to modify the telescope and get it ready. On the VLTI, we have a network of expertise centers that can provide further help and assistance with proposal preparation, with advice, with analysis, with modeling of the data. So please do look at this opportunity, get in touch with the expertise centers. There is a new procedure for the aperture synthesis with specific slots that will be safeguarded in the schedule to make them more successful. It's only offered in service mode on 80s. Gravity astrometry is under development, and if you wish to apply for it, please do get in contact with the astrometry team. The mode is offered, but it's not yet fully characterized. And Matisse is offering also graph-o-math mode on 80s, which uses an external trench tracker from the gravity. And this is where I stop, and I'll take your questions probably at the end, but feel free to also write them in the chat, and we can also communicate through that. And for more complex ones, of course, feel free to write to us to USD Hub. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. So I think we can have time for 1 or 2 questions. And while people raise their hands or write the questions in the chat, I would like to remind you that if you want more information about the specific instruments, you can also look at the presentation in the first session of our users workshop. The link it's available on the website, where Bruno Levingood and Antoine Marand gave a presentation exactly on the various instruments, presenting also the capabilities of the various instruments. So please refer also to that point. So Marina really focused on the new features of this period. So any question? I don't see any.